Good morning. I'm still reporting on the economy. Today we continue with SR 10, the 10th in our series of 4,075 still reports and over 400 other reports for a total of over 4,500 YouTube videos over the course of 18 years. This is the second part of an examination of what can effectively serve a sovereign nation as money. As we will see, this is a big problem which sovereign nations have tried to deal with over many centuries. The bottom line is who controls the quantity of money, not what backs it. The recent proposal by the state of Texas to issue gold-backed money only works because we trust Texas to not issue more of its gold-backed money than it has gold in its vaults to back it up. But that will only work as long as the politicians overseeing the amount of gold are honest. If dishonest politicians get in control of such a monetary system as they have in the Federal Reserve System, then the backing for the money will gradually become degraded. In other words, the politicians will start issuing more pieces of gold-backed money than they have gold held in their vaults. This is unfortunately inevitable because the glitter of gold bullion is the ultimate temptation for sinful humans. But what about gold or silver coinage? They are absolutely secure as long as the purity of the gold or silver content is verified. However, can you see the problem in using only coin for the exchange of goods? Can you go to the grocery store and expect the store to assay the contents of a tiny gold coin before verifying every purchase? Very impractical. Can the blockchain be used for gold-backed purchases? Maybe, but with the rapid onset of artificial intelligence, can we guarantee that hackers will never be able to break the blockchain? I wouldn't bet on it. Besides, what percentage of the population even understands how to use blockchain at this point? A very low percent, like 1% at present. So what's the answer for humanity? What can we use to pay for things without being cheated? The answer is monetary reform. This is the most basic yet unattended human problem. We must fix our money in order to maintain civilization. Otherwise, a totally corrupt politician will ascend to power and use that power to enrich his family and friends and then political supporters, and by essentially bribing that constituency over and over again will be able to attain an unbreakable plutocracy, authoritarian rule by the very rich. This is just the opposite of what our founders set up the U.S. Constitution to achieve. But there is one giant weakness in that Constitution which has allowed for its gradual destruction: the ability of the federal government to borrow. Today, the United States Constitution is, for the first time in our history, being ignored by a small group of kleptocrats who have seized control of our entire administrative branch of government. Our precious Constitution has become a hollowed-out shell. Today, we the people anxiously await a courageous Congress or Supreme Court to step up and right the ship of state. But no change will be effective in the long run without monetary reform. That is, withdrawing from the government the ability to borrow. If left unattended, enduring freedom will not be the legacy of this great experiment in representative self-governance. Only a cruel plutocracy or kleptocracy awaits our children and grandchildren as their political inheritance. Welcome to Washington. I'm still reporting on the economy. In our last report, we talked about the Fort Knox gold scandal as an example that gold is not always good as gold. In other words, a gold-only money system would not be the answer to our economic problems because it wouldn't solve the core problem: who controls the quantity? Remember, it doesn't matter what backs the money. All that matters is who controls the quantity. In this report, we're going to look at this quantity issue and see how the first Norman king of England solved the problem. 1,000 years ago in England, the goldsmiths, the bankers of that day, discovered that instead of lending out their gold coins, they could lend out receipts, IOUs for their gold coins. Then they learned that they could lend out way more receipts than they actually had gold to cover them, and no one would ever be the wiser. When they lent out lots of their gold IOUs, the economy boomed. When they called in their loans, the money supply shrank and a depression set in. Then goldsmiths discovered that by acting in concert, this manipulation of the money supply could force the king to do their bidding. It's the same today. When bankers control the quantity of money, they always end up controlling the politics of the nation as well. That's the definition of plutocracy, rule by the rich. Now, the opposite of plutocracy is a democratic republic, where the voters elect politicians to represent their wishes. Democratizing this political power is the very basis of our freedom. In 1100 AD, King Henry I of England got tired of the goldsmiths manipulating the money supply for their own political ends. Henry understood that spreading power out not only gave more freedom to the common citizen, but made the nation stronger, less susceptible to tyrants. Of course, King Henry wasn't elected, but he would be the first English king to lay the foundations of democracy. First, he took the money power out of the hands of the goldsmiths by creating a unique form of government-issued, debt-free money called tally sticks. Tally sticks did not represent any quantity of gold or any other commodity. They were simply polished sticks of wood issued by the king, which he declared to be good for the payment of taxes. That made tally sticks just as good as any other form of money.
So the idea with the tally stick was that you cut notches in a piece of wood. Usually it was hazel, and these notches were of a prescribed size, dimension.
Yeah,
and if you look at this one, you can see it's got 1,000-pound notches. So
there's 6 notches times 1,000 pounds each. Is that the way it is?
That's exactly it.
So that's a 6,000-pound tally stick. This side is called the
stock. This was kept by the person who made the loan, or paid the money in.
I see.
And this is the foil.
And so the foil would be spent into existence, and the idea was splitting the stick down the middle was to prevent counterfeiting, because of course a stick splits uniquely down the middle.
Because when the debt was repaid, the two pieces were put together, and if they didn't tally, something was awry.
The longer half of a tally stick was called the stock, the root word for stocks and bonds or stockholders. For centuries, the supporters of gold-backed money have belittled tally sticks as an unimportant form of fiat money, one not backed by gold or silver. Some authors even claim that tallies weren't a real money system because they were only used for very large transactions, but that's just not the case.
And was this the common size of tally sticks?
In the Middle Ages, the average size was reckoned to be the length from the tip of his thumb to the tip of his forefinger, quite short. Because if you think of it in terms of this is 6,000 pounds. That means it's a huge, huge sum of money.
So the wider the spacing, the larger the
larger the amount. But it was a prescribed distance. It was an inch, and I think half an inch for hundreds and a quarter of an inch for tens. And then it became little lines drawn across with a saw.
So it is clear that tally sticks were used for smaller denominations too, and worked well as an effective debt-free money system for 726 years. Without the crushing weight of debt-based money, England flourished into the greatest power on earth for many centuries. At their peak, it has been estimated that 95% of English money was in the form of tally sticks. Compare that to today, where the only debt-free government-issued money is in the form of coin, about 3% of the money supply in the UK and far less in the US.
Gold-only money systems don't work. There is not a single example in the last 2,000 years where it has worked for the common man, the middle class. Yes, gold works great if you are rich. Yes, gold-only money systems can impose spending discipline on the government, but at what cost? The cost of the very rich controlling the politics of the nation, because the very rich have always been able to control the quantity of gold. Gouverneur Morris, one of the authors of the Constitution, lamented the root cause of the problem during the debate at the Constitutional Convention.
The rich will strive to establish their dominion and enslave the rest. They always did, they always will, if we do not by the power of government keep them in their proper spheres.
Our lesson from the pages of history is he who controls the quantity of money controls the nation. The money power is the most basic freedom. Do you want unelectable bankers in control of the most important power in a nation, the money power? Or do you want to have some say through your elected government? Government isn't perfect, but it's all we've got. This is nothing less than a choice between serfdom or freedom. In England, gold coin continued to circulate as a competing currency with tally sticks, but the vast majority of English money was in the form of tally sticks. This system of debt-free, government-issued money lasted for 726 years and gave rise to the greatest empire in history. The tally stick system remained in operation until the founding of the Bank of England in 1694. From that point on, most of England's money was borrowed into existence. All the tally sticks were burned, and the British Empire began its slow, steady decline as the interest payments on the new national debt began to pile up. By the mid-1700s, the interest payments were so great that 75% of British taxes went towards paying just the interest on their debt. This is why England started forcing unreasonable taxes on all her colonies, including America, and that led to the American Revolution. In our next report, we'll look at the question, if we give those rascals in Congress the money power, they'll just print too much of it. This is a reasonable question, which we'll address in the next report, but the short answer is, yeah, but at least we aren't going into debt to do it. I'm still reporting from Washington, wishing your family a blessed and happy New Year.